identification, it is confirmed that this man was Paul Fisher. 8 minutes later, at 9:12 p.m., he was once again never to be seen again. Before driving away, he was spotted walking in that park, but as for the man himself, he was nowhere to be found. For the next 24 hours, because the very next morning, on Friday the 27th of October, tradesmen found his body at the bottom of these cliffs. Coincidentally, the gap had already been sectioned off for routine renovations. Looking across the gap, to retrieve the unidentified. By noon, the body had been retrieved and identified. It was floated and shattered from the cliffs and harsh waters. Soon enough, though, through fingerprint technology and records held at the Dutch embassy, the body was identified to belong to Paul Fisher. It appeared that the cowards had decided to clearly displaying premeditation and killing, or at least harming his former girlfriend. He then rented out his silver 2003 Lexus sedan and drove it towards St Andrew's Cathedral School. At around 7 p.m. that night, and following her shift at school, Lily James was spotted by a surveillance camera entering the gymnasium's toilets. Although this surveillance footage is not currently available to the public, Paul was spotted following her, with multiple witnesses reviewing the surveillance footage and confirming his identity. An altercation follows, sadly ending in Lily's death. She was beaten and bludgeoned to death with a hammer, and, tragically, had been assaulted so badly that her face was no longer recognizable. Paul spent over an hour in the bathroom before leaving shortly after 8 p.m. He then jumped in his car and drove to Diamond Bay Reserve, known as the Gap. That is when the surveillance camera captured him at 8:47 p.m. As we know, he made a short trip away from the car before returning. It is believed that he dumped the hammer and his belongings in this bin in that time frame. Paul then drove away and parked his car in a nearby car park. He then phoned the authorities to inform them of her body, anonymously confessing that she had been murdered and her body was in one of the school's bathrooms. After that, Paul callously messaged Lily's father, pretending to be her as he asked him to pick her up from school. Criminologists speculate that Paul's motive for sending those text messages was either to ensure that Lily's body would be found, or to potentially alter the time at which the former headmaster of St Andrew's Cathedral School received heavy criticism after describing Paul, of all people, as an absolute delight and not a lie. Important detail to take away here is that Paul seemed to be like everybody else. People capable of making actions are all around us, and nobody would have ever suspected this from Paul. I think it's important here to note that Dr. Collier was not justifying Paul in any way, but rather highlighting that he had masked his actual self around the public.
Always use our deposit limits to control your spending. Let's keep it fun at megabuilder.com.
To this day, nobody understands why Paul reacted in such an aggressive and permanent way to the breakup. He was young, successful, and had a very prosperous future ahead of him. And sure, he may have been a douchebag, but he had plenty of time to mature into a thoughtful and kind man. Some do speculate that the 18 months of isolation he had during COVID-19 may have affected him badly. But personal opinion, that doesn't change anything. Most of us have to go through that. It has left many students confused, because although some of them do refer to this as he's a good friend who cares about his students, quite honestly, his behaviour is simply incomprehensible. It also appears that her murder was premeditated. In the hours prior to her death, he rented out a car and purchased a hammer before finding her. In fact, the car even suggests that he may have planned to dispose of the body in hopes that she would never be found. For all we know, he may have continued his life afterwards as if nothing had happened. Following Paul's death, his parents decided that they would not repatriate their only child's body to the Netherlands, and would instead have him cremated before scattering his ashes in Sydney. Refocusing here from a broad to a personal lens, it is easy to see that Lily's death was entirely avoidable and should never have happened. Sadly, Paul's behaviour was not predictable, but one could argue that the school should have had a security guard or system in place to protect Lily from Paul. After all, he was alone with her in that bathroom for more than 1 hour before fleeing. It's terrible to realise that questions over security require a tragedy like this to happen fast. Lily's close friends remember her with fondness. They continue to describe her as the nicest and kindest person they have ever met. She is remembered as full of vitality, energy, enthusiasm, and a natural fit for the community she served. Lily's bright, bubbly personality will be dearly missed by those who knew her. She was a vibrant, smart, compassionate young lady who impacted the lives of many at her school, and hundreds, including myself, are utterly heartbroken by her death. Following her find peace in the coming years, and I also hope that eventually her story will help protect others in the future. With beautiful weather, an eclectic and vibrant culture, and many things to do, Sydney truly is a magnificent place to be. In fact, it is often ranked as one of the most livable cities in the world. But just like everywhere, that doesn't mean that it's exempt from danger. Sydney will never forget Lily's name, and while walking around this city, it has become evident to me that she has touched the hearts of many. Behind every tragedy, there is a lesson to be learned, and whether that be in the form of heightening security or improving mental health facilities, we should never stop in our desire to make our cities a safer place for everyone. To this day, it isn't precisely clear what Paul plans to do with himself and with Lily. Was this is highly regulated? So I think the magic seems to wear off as we get older, but in those younger years, most of us want to go clubbing, or at least I did. Back then, life just seemed to be easier. We could go out for several drinks, stay up until 3 a.m., and then go to bed and wake up absolutely fine. But now, I'd wake up with a terrible hangover, ringing in my ears, and probably amnesia. So it's no surprise really that now, after the coffee, instead of heavy drinks, Tina and Pablo will keep in regular contact throughout the following months. Fast forward 2 years into 2019, and at the age of 17, Valentina passed her course and officially became a certified DJ. Shortly after this, Pablo took it upon himself to start managing her. He had many contacts in the industry and was able to land her several gigs and performances. Possibly quite predictably, though, this relationship would not stay professional for long. Pablo continued to professionally manage Valentina. The man still loved her and wanted to see her thrive, so I suppose you could say that they did split up on good terms. Being outgoing and genuinely friendly, Valentina found it quite easy to network with other creators. This, of course, aiding in her rising popularity throughout the years. Moving forward, she would often perform at clubs in Colombian cities such as Bogota and Medellin. In other words, she was quite literally living her dream life. By the year 2022, Valentina had grown to become a young woman with a very successful career. And throughout all of this, she remained both honest and committed to her promises, using the money that she earned to help support her mother and family. It was noted that she often treated her and the kids to cinema trips, new clothes, and good food. Following her breakup with Pablo, Valentina was now single and ready to test the waters again. Despite the fun, she missed having a genuine connection with someone, and so she began to date. As mentioned before, she was amiable and had no trouble in meeting new people, and just a few months later, she found herself a new partner, that being a 34-year-old man from Texas named John Unos. Their passionate discussions developed quite rapidly, and after only several days of talking, the two decided to meet in person. Valentina had formerly been invited to a festival which was located in Mexico, and with this being between both of their countries, they decided to meet there over the weekend. Neither of them would have to travel too far for this, one up from Colombia and the other down from Texas. Now, despite the language what I said about him leaving his family high and dry, when someone asked for marriage advice on Twitter, John replied with prenup and offshore trust. Now, we'll get back to his Twitter profile again shortly, but this guy talks so much shit about stocks. Honestly, it was a real effort not to fall asleep listening to all this gibberish. Having left his family with nothing and now back on the dating was stronger. From the outside, John seemed to support his career, and when expressed a desire to get minor plastic surgery, he even encouraged her and paid for her procedures. After all, he felt quite special having a young and successful woman around. Simultaneously, and fantasized about their plans to go to her dream destination, Europe. But as time passed by and their relationship